Hi, Catherine. Thank you so much for coming to the show. And yeah, taking the time out for me and my audience. I really appreciate it. How are you doing today?
I am so delighted that you invited me. I just really appreciate every opportunity to share what I love and this important message of healing and, dealing with trauma, awakening in this amazing time
Yeah,
that we're in, just as humanity. So I am ready to go and excited to be here. Thank you.
you're most welcome. The pleasure is mine, bringing you as a guest in my show. I really appreciate that. Yeah, so today, the topic which you chose to talk about, which is dealing with the trauma, and obviously you're passionate to talk about it, and obviously you had a tough times as well with your life dealing with the trauma itself. So before we get into like a talk about trauma and everything, I want to know more about you. Why did you decide to talk about trauma, and why you started to helping other people in terms of their healing and their journey coming from the depression, anxiety they have when coping with the losing loved ones?
Yeah. Well, I think as with most people, we're drawn to both experiences from our own lives, right?
Hmm.
And also, I think, whether it's past lives, however we want to think about who we come into the world as. So I
Yeah.
think I came into the world sort of as a natural healer, teacher. I was always the one bringing home the hurt animal,
Mm.
or being friends with the person in the class who didn't quite seem to fit in. I just sort of had this natural inclination to
Yeah.
support, those who seemed wounded or alone, or, and that just sort of grew through my life. And even in college, I was volunteering to work at a group home for young women who, had to be removed from their homes because of the various reasons that
Yeah.
children did then and still do. And so, that's just a natural inclination of mine. And, as we've spoken about, I've also had my own losses, right?
Yeah.
And experiences. My mother passed away on the same day that I finished my college classes. And so,
So sorry to hear that.
um, thank you. And so, as a young woman, losing my mother sort of unexpectedly, at a period of time in my life that it should have been very celebratory. I was
Hmm.
graduating from college. I was actually getting married 2 months later. I got married quite young, which was also a surprise to me. I didn't expect that, but
Yeah.
I met someone, and so it's sort of always been this balance of the celebration and the loss, right? And then
Yeah.
I 8 years later, when I was expecting my first child, my father passed away 2 months before my son was born. And so again, this sort of
Yeah.
intersection of joy and celebration and loss and grief. And I think that has been sort of a pattern through my life. I also I come from a large Irish Catholic family. There were 8 of us. Had 6 brothers,
Hmm.
and one of my brothers, who I love dearly, also struggled with mental illness. So
Right.
that was present in the family with his um, struggles and his various diagnoses. I think that's diagnoses. Somebody sees it as one thing, somebody else sees it as something else. So I don't even want to apply the diagnosis, but he struggled and he passed away a few years ago. And
Wow.
that and other personal experiences of
Yeah.
mine just led me in that direction. When I One of the things that was very interesting, though, in my story is that even though I had those experiences, I never planned to be a psychotherapist. That
Hmm.
was not really, I didn't have any really experience with that.
Right.
I had sort of a snooty attitude, thinking it was kind of like, oh, that's just for wealthy people who want
Yeah.
to sit around and contemplate their belly buttons. I just so
Yeah.
my step into social work was really very grassroots. I worked with rape crisis work, domestic violence work, child abuse, women in poverty. Back in the day, I was organizing, I was a social activist,
Yeah.
marching for equal rights for women. So I've also always had this thread of empowering women, right? That's always
Mm.
sort of been in the mix, whether that was, helping them through a sexual assault, a rape, or supporting them getting out of violent situations,
Yeah.
or working in the community around trying to get pay equity and organizing, helping women organize to have higher wages and health care and childcare benefits. So
Mm.
it's just always been there. And then after 12 years or so with my master's degree in social work, while I was on maternity leave with my daughter, she's the third of my three children,
Yeah.
I started sort of getting this message in my head about going into private practice as a therapist. And I was like, no, digging my heels in, like, that's not what I see for myself. And as these things happen, the message got stronger, and
Mm.
I said, okay, if I'm committed to following my guidance, which I had started to do more, let me check this out. And I went into a small private practice with, I knew one of the women in the practice, and
Yeah.
obviously got to know the others, and started to do therapy without any real clinical training. And I think that what that allowed me to do was to really open up to different ways
Mm.
of working with clients when the traditional talk therapy, in the way that I was trying to do it,
Yeah.
wasn't working. It didn't seem
Right.
to be working terribly well for my clients, and it certainly wasn't working for me. I wasn't feeling
Mm.
like I was really helping people, or I was really feeling fulfilled. In fact, just the opposite. I often felt like I was almost re-traumatizing them by asking
Yeah.
them to talk about things that I didn't really have the skills to help them overcome or heal. And so that was the beginning of a more sort of committed journey for me. And that was in the mid 1990s. So we're going back.
Yeah.
But it really was sort of spirit putting me solidly on the path of diving into my own healing, meditation, yoga. I just became a sponge for everything spiritual and metaphysical that I can get my hands on, and I still am, right?
Yeah.
Um, Not only from the perspective of reading about it or getting certified in it, because I've been an energy healer now
Mm.
since the late 90s. I've been on that spiritual path, but also immersing myself, becoming a student of it, right?
Yeah.
Having the downloads, the uploads, the past life regressions,
Yeah.
connecting with the angels. Like if it's out there, I've done it. Theta healing, this kind of healing, that kind of healing. And so I brought that richness of different modalities, different ways of looking at trauma,
Yeah.
bringing it back to the trauma and realizing that we had to dive below the surface, right? We
Mm.
had to
Yeah.
get beyond what we knew, and just sort of moving the chess pieces of facts around in our conscious mind. We really had to dive below the surface into what's
Yeah.
being held in our subconscious, into what's held in the tissue of our cells, of our bodies, from experiences in our lives. And as we talked about in our earlier conversation,
Mm.
when I talk about trauma, I'm not even necessarily talking about the big T trauma of sexual assault, or maybe having been a soldier in war,
Yeah.
or having had a terrible family situation, but really the everyday little T traumas of not feeling heard, of
Mm.
not having someone care about or for our emotions, for not feeling like it was okay to ask for what we needed, or maybe being told very
Yeah.
clearly, don't, just be happy with what you've got, So it doesn't have to be a big traumatic experience for us to feel traumatized. So
Yeah.
that's, I'll probably leave it there because I could go on forever, but I hope that answered your question. And I also, as we talked about, I also had my own experiences of rape
Yeah.
and betrayal in certain situations. And so again, I bring, I have, as I said, 3 children. They've all to some degree struggled with their own anxiety. My
Mm.
older son has more difficulties with his mental health, and we've been through a lot with him,
Yeah.
where he's actually had to have been hospitalized on a couple of occasions for, being really depressed and suicidal. And so I bring my own experiences, not just my professional training,
Yeah.
but my life, my life. Um,
Yeah, that makes
I'm
it unique,
leaving.
isn't it? That makes it unique compared to like other coaches or psychotherapist. And yeah, this,
Yeah. And even my experience of choosing to leave. Now, this was a choice that I made,
yeah.
but it still has its, shock waves and after effects to leave my 30-year marriage. At the
Mm.
same time, I had left my employment, opened a healing center. I mean, I really turned my life
Yeah.
completely upside down, almost 15 years ago now, when I was 52 years old. So I know what it's like to make a difficult decision, to leave something that's fairly comfortable that other people might look at and say, oh, don't they have a lovely life, a nice
Yeah.
home and 3 children? And yet there was an emptiness, a feeling of not being able to be the fullest expression of myself within that relationship. Um, and I chose to step out of it. And,
Mm.
that in and of itself was a really difficult decision. And, there were times where, on certain days, in certain hours, I wasn't sure if I was having a spiritual awakening or whether I was just losing my
Yeah.
mind. Like, I don't know, it could have been either one.
Yeah.
And I walked a very fine line between, trying to listen to my intuition and move through these, again, loss and grief, because it
Mhm.
was loss and grief, even though I chose it.
Yeah.
Um, and following my inner guidance and saying, okay, this is just the path that I'm on. And, you know, I'll get through this. I'll get to the other side of this.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I have sort of a unique ability. I always have this image of sort of turning back and offering my hand to someone who may be experiencing some of what I went through.
Yeah.
Um, to say, I can help you navigate this. I have some tools in my toolbox. I have some, you know, um, spiritual wisdom to offer you. Um,
Yeah. Let's talk about like your journey as well, which will be like more interesting before we can actually go into like how we can help others, like what steps needs to be doing. I'm really curious to know about your journey as well. Like, how old are you? Like when you lost your mother?
I was 22. Yeah. And
Yeah.
literally, when I say the last day of college, it was my
Mhm.
last day of classes in my senior year
Right.
of college. So, um, and that's a whole other experience, because my mom um, was in the hospital at the time, but nobody was talking about, my dad wasn't
Yeah.
really talking about what was going on with her. And
Mhm.
I would go visit her, and she would seem sort of okay with me. I mean, the nurses would come in and they'd have her breathe into a tube. So I knew that there was something
Yeah.
going on with her, um, breath and oxygen levels, but she never really spoke about it either. And I know
Mm,
that was, I'm sure, because my parents were very loving people, that was their attempt
mm,
to not, upset or share. But, in the end, then when I did get that call that day to go to the hospital, to walk into a room and to see my mom in a condition that I totally didn't expect, and then, her passing within a number of hours, I felt
right.
completely blindsided.
Yeah.
Um, and although I have 8 siblings, I'm the seventh. So by that time, it was just myself and my younger brother living at home with,
Right.
uh, you know, um, and maybe my older siblings had some idea. My
Mm,
sister, who was the oldest, she was a nurse. Maybe my father confided in her more, but she lived several states away. She and I,
yeah.
didn't really talk that much, and not for any reason except that there was so many years
Distance.
difference
Yeah.
between us. And she had moved out when I was 7 years old,
Mm,
right after my younger brother was born. And so, back in that day, you didn't have social media. You didn't have, there
yeah.
weren't easy ways to connect
Yeah.
except the landline,
Telephone. Yeah.
right? And I was a college student. I was looking forward to graduation and getting
Mm,
married and moving out of state, because my then husband was already accepted into grad school,
right.
in another state. So we were planning a move, and, to have that experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. And years later, I had to deal with this feeling of sort of betrayal,
Mm,
not, not intentional betrayal, but a feeling of betrayal by both of my parents for not having shared,
what's
um,
going on? Right.
what was going on. And,
Yeah.
maybe if I had been older and wiser at the time, my mother had rheumatic fever a
Mm,
couple of times as a younger woman, and apparently her heart had been affected by that. She had been, it had been recommended after her fourth pregnancy that she not have more children, but she was an Irish Catholic woman.
yeah.
And they didn't practice birth control. And so I'm sure each of those pregnancies, adding another child, all added to the stress,
Yeah.
on her body and her heart. Um, and that's eventually, what ended her life. But again, none of that was discussed or talked about. And so, it's just, for me, talking about the things that are going on in our lives, in our families, in a loving and honest and authentic way,
Mm,
feels so critical to me. I think because of that, early
yeah.
life experience. And also, nobody really talked about my brother's mental illness either.
Mm,
Um, when I was younger.
yeah.
He would be gone, and I'd say, where's Ed? And he's like, oh, he was having nosebleeds, so he's in the
Right.
hospital having some tests done. Where, maybe he was in a psych facility, because
Yeah.
he was eventually diagnosed with, some pretty significant psychiatric illnesses.
So he was your
Uh,
younger brother, right?
Not my younger brother, but my older son.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and we never really talked about that as a
Mm,
family. So this, just bringing this these issues of loss and grief and trauma and what happens in families and how it's dealt with and how that impacts each of us
yeah.
as the daughter or son, as the sibling, uh, you know um, for me, is so important to really talk about. So, again,
Yeah.
I'm
And
happy for the
also,
opportunity.
yeah, that's totally fine. And you've been sexually assaulted as well, right? You mentioned. And how old are you that time?
I was in my late teens.
Right.
Yeah. And,
So
again,
your
that
parents was
was,
alive that time.
I'm sorry.
Both parents was alive that time.
Yes, my
Yeah.
parents were still alive.
Yeah.
And that was an acquaintance rape. It sounds so cliche, but it was the older brother of someone in my grade. So,
Mhm.
we had friends if
Yeah.
in, different grades. We went to a rather small school. I went to Catholic high school, and they had already graduated, but we were all together at a party.
Mm.
And, the older brother came into the room that I was sleeping in that night and, sexually assaulted me. Uh, and then it was turned back on me as though I had been the one who had, invited him into his
Yeah.
room or whatever. I mean, I don't want to go into all the details of it, but
Yeah, that's true.
again, it felt, it was a terrible, I mean, that the incident in and of itself had its own trauma, but
Mm.
then feeling betrayed by the women who I thought were my friends, who I could hear downstairs saying, what's going on with her? Why is she upstairs? Why doesn't she just come down? She needs to leave. Like, because
Yeah.
he was down there with all of them telling a different story. And so another experience of sort of that way that women can betray each other,
Yeah.
which again is one of the reasons that I try to work with women and
Mm.
support them and bring these issues out, because that wound, that sister wound or girlfriend wound, or the ways that women can throw each other under the bus,
Yeah.
um, you know is is really hurtful, is really hurtful.
Yeah.
And it made me look at, where have I betrayed people, maybe not even intentionally but unintentionally? Where have I turned my back on someone? Where have I not been
Mm.
there for someone? Where have I betrayed myself? Because we
Yeah.
also betray ourselves in these situations, right?
It's
So
true.
many times when we make decisions or we just act on an ego impulse, we want to be liked, we want to be accepted, we want to be approved of, we want to be in the popular kid thing, and so we do things that just betray ourselves, our bodies. We trade off sex for attention, affection, feeling cared for
Mm.
a short period of time, and all of that creates trauma in the body.
Yeah. Yeah. So what was your like healing process like? I know like you've been through a lot. Did you actually needed some kind of like a therapy or like a coach, or just like you did it on yourself?
Uh, all of the above. um, I, I sought out therapy actually when I was in the process of deciding
Hmm.
how to move forward in my marriage. Early on when the sexual assault happened, therapy just wasn't a thing. I was a 19-year-old girl, and
Yeah.
whatever. You just sort of shove it down and move past it and do the best you can. It wasn't until years later, um, as I moved further on my spiritual path, and I was at that point then using more alternative modalities for healing, energy work, Reiki, um, past life regression, uh, just getting channeled messages. I was really dabbling in many different modalities,
Yeah.
not the more traditional sort of route of therapy in that sense.
Mm.
Um, Craniosacral therapy was very powerful for me. Um, yeah, I mean, there have been so many experiences and spiritual experiences and mystical experiences, even when I went through seminary.
Yeah.
And but it was a very alternative seminary program, and there were many instances of healing
Hmm.
during that period of time. It's hard to really even say what I did, because I kind of did it all. Like, if there's a healing modality out there, I did it. Angel cards, I mean, everything you can imagine.
Yeah.
spirit retrieval, soul retrieval, so many different processes
And how long did
that
it
have.
actually take you to like get to normal life and like some kind of like a healing process, actually see the kind of results? How long actually take you?
So, again, because it was sort of an extended period of time trying a lot of different things. So I would say from that, it really all came up around the time that I left my marriage
Hmm.
in that was 2007, and I was already deep into a lot of these different practices.
Right.
But I would say honestly, it took years, because you just keep going deeper
Yeah.
and peeling the layers of the onion. And even now, I still do energy work with different people, and um, because for me, and depending on people's um, belief systems or understanding. I mean, I believe we have lifetimes after lifetimes after lifetimes after lifetimes that have left imprints in
Yeah.
our energy field, on our energy body. And so I feel as though the work can go on forever. But at a certain point, you reach, like I reached a point where, I was more settled and I was doing my work,
Yeah.
probably in 5 or 6 years, but I continue to heal and clear and open more and more layers of what I call my multidimensional self, right?
Mm.
There's this human Catherine that's here in this form, in this lifetime, at this time. And then there are a whole lot of other aspects of me that I feel like I'm also healing. So,
Yeah.
but sort of I think what you're referring to, Razzle, about the work in this lifetime of getting my feet back under me, feeling more grounded, and like I was really okay. I'm sort of back, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm back and better. Was because so many things happened at the same time. I moved out of my house. I left my
Mm.
job. I opened a healing center. I left my marriage. I was living without my children and my dogs. I was in a new financial situation where I didn't have the financial support that I had when I was married. So there
Yeah.
were a lot of moving parts. I was learning to be an entrepreneur, because I opened a healing center.
Yeah.
So lots of pieces going on. And I know that, when in this journey of becoming an entrepreneur, of finding your own way in the world, that'll
Hmm.
bring up all kinds of fears and old beliefs about I'm not worthy, or I'm not good enough, or I can't do this, like all the doubts.
It's true.
It'll all come up to be dealt with. So, you know, I don't know how many years it took till I really got my feet under me. I want to say 5, 6, 7, but it's an ongoing process.
Yeah. It's like a something like you can't really remove it from your past, right? It's just everyone has it, because I lost both of my parents age of 13. Also, I lost my best friend age of 9. So I lost so many people, like my uncle, auntie, my uh, grandparents as well. And so many people was like really close to me. So this
Yeah,
kind of things, like even though till now, like my parents passed away, it's about 12 years now. Still, I see them every single night in my dream. Every
mm,
single day, I remember them. And it's not something like you forget about it, right? It's
yeah,
an ongoing thing. But obviously, we move forward with the life. Life is going on, and everything seems normal. But the emptiness going to be stay there, and obviously, there is
yeah.
no kind of
And
cure to it.
I mean, in my experience in my own life and with my clients, each successive loss,
Mhm.
it's sort of like layered on top of the others, right?
Yeah.
It might be softer, but each time it's like I think of it like a tsunami, right? It
Mhm.
just sort of
Builds up.
gets bigger each
Yeah.
time we experience another
Yeah.
loss and feel that raw pain and loss and loneliness and sadness.
Mm.
Um, I mean, I think it's lovely that you still feel that connection to your parents, that they're in your dreams, you feel like you can connect to them, because not everybody does, you
Yeah.
know. So to be able to have, even though they're on the other side and they're not here in the physical, to still be able to feel connected to them in some way.
Yeah, it's just a kind of like it's not normal for everyone, and that's true even with my siblings. Like we six of us, like we are two brothers and four sisters. They hardly see my parents in the dream, like once a year or something. And I was like, "What are you talking about? Every time I go to sleep, my parents is there. I'm just living like a different world." And I tell my wife all the time I was with my parents, and just they tire me up with something. Like I'm living in a different, the old house we live in and everything. And they was there. I felt like they're real. And it's
Yeah,
been happening like since they passed away, and ever since the same way. I just feel the way. That's why in during the daytime I don't miss them as much. It just keep them
right.
on prayers and remembers. But other than that, I feel like they're still there, and it just another different level. Some people can
And when
understand it,
you
some people don't
connect,
understand it. Yeah.
when you connect with them, how does that make you feel?
I feel happy, right? Feel like I'm with everyone, right? It's feel
Yeah,
like there is still there. I'm connected with them, and also like that during the daytime the emptiness is there. Like I don't have any parents. In the nighttime when I wake up in the morning and I realize they was just with me right now, and right now I
yeah,
need to live a life, and that's like a kind of different feeling comparing to you lose someone, and if they always with you in the nighttime, because when I go sleep is 8 9 hours we sleep. So even though 4 hours they in our subconscious minds in a dream and everything, that feel like hey, you actually been there most of the time. Even though our parents is alive, we only hardly see them once a year or something. Some people once a week. It depends like what kind of relationship there. With my
yeah,
parents I had like a proper connection and relation with them. Like when my dad had a cancer when I was age 11, like after 6 p.m. till midnight, we just talking in a like in the garden and in our a long bench. We sat a corner and we just having like a proper conversation and everything. Same with my mom as well. So it's like a proper connection is there, and it's always going to be there. We're not distracted by TV. We're not distracted by like a
mm,
telephone or anything. That wasn't the case. I'm from Bangladesh, so we had like a problem when electricity goes in the evening time. So it's a dark night. So only thing we put the lamp on and we just having a chat all evening. So that builds a
yeah,
connection. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, how beautiful. And was it different for you than your siblings? Because I know you just said your siblings don't have that same experience now. Do you feel like your relationship with your father, it sounds like in particular, or maybe even your mom, was on a different level than what you're?
They was close. I'll say they was close. All of our we are siblings with close with my both mom and dad. But I'll say with my dad with other siblings because my elder sister, I'm the youngest in the whole family. So she had a gap with me about 10 years. And my elder sister, she have a gap between with me about 20 years. And my brother is like 18 years. So while they was like a born or kids, that time my dad was really busy. He started a new business and everything. He was working 18 hours a day, so he hardly see him. And that time he
Yeah,
was in a young age, and that time he was angry all the time and everything. Even the connection was there, but all the time, like my all other siblings, they used to get scared of him, like having a conversation and all that. They have like a 5 10 minutes conversation, proper deep, then it's like a serious mode is to happen. And with me, luckily, what happened was like when he got cancer, my dad, and he was like 56 years old,
mm,
and he realized he's not gonna make it because he has a stage 4 cancer. That's why he was like teaching me about all of the life journey he had, He had a restaurant
Mm.
business, so all of the guests used to come to his restaurant. So he had to chat with them. They used to tell him a story like how they overcame a bankruptcy, how they deal with the family and everything. So everyone's knowledge he used to like pouring me on my small brain when I was 11 years old, teaching me how to do business, teaching me how to
Yeah,
live with the family, teaching me with a relationship, teaching me with the spirituality, connection with the God and everything. And
yeah,
that time he became soft as well. His anger gone down because of the
yeah,
pain of everything, because he had lung cancer. So that time, I think the connection was more towards me. And that was
yeah.
like a 1.5 years. And I was like helping him through his journey as well, because he was a cancer patient. I'm giving him medication 3 times a day. I'm sleeping with him in the same room with a different bed, because nighttime I need to look after him, take him to the bathroom and everything. And
Mm.
sometimes he got pain. I have to give him a painkiller, pain patches and everything. So that actually built the connection. And one and a
Yeah,
half
so
years,
you had a very different experience with
yeah,
your dad, not just age-wise and
yeah,
where he was in his career, because I hear that,
yeah,
obviously with the older siblings, the father is out working, right? The
yeah,
relationship with him is not, he's more the disciplinarian, or,
mm,
he's not there as often. But, being the younger child,
yeah.
you got to see him in a different stage of his life, not just because of his career and his work, but then also the illness, which,
Yeah, he just helped with the both ways, and also his last stage of his retirement and everything. So he wasn't working as hard as how he used to.
yeah.
So even though before he got cancer, he used to drop me off school and everything, pick me up. We used to have like a lunch together, dinner together, and also it's like reduce his work hours comparing to what he used to do in his 30s and his 40s, and that really helped me through and also during the summer holiday he is to doing vegetation, take him to the farm, and we are doing vegetation together and everything, farming and teaching me different things. Uh, yeah, that was like an interesting experience. Also, like when I'm washing his motorbike, car, and everything, we are doing it together, cleaning the house together. So he teaches
Yeah.
me everything I needed to, like how as men supposed
Mm.
to be, even though we are like a wealthy enough in Bangladesh back home. But he always learn how to do things. Don't rely on other people. So
Yeah.
that came to me on my heart. Yeah, but since I think the connection grown on that and with my mom, because I'm the youngest in the family, also she had like a more connection, and I was nearly about to die or something because I had internal bleeding, external bleeding from my belly button when I was just born. So they thought I'm just gone because it's bleeding excessively. So since then, like my mom got too much connection with me, so all the time, she taking care of more than my other siblings. It's like why if something happens to him and all that. Also, I had
Mhm.
asthma problem, so very young age, so always I needed attention. I don't get too cold, too warm, dust and everything. So she used to take care of me from the whole world is like a different way. So that's why like with my parents, I'll see have like more connection compared to other
Yeah.
siblings. Yeah,
Yeah. It's almost like, so what's the difference between you and your next oldest sibling?
about 12 years.
Yeah. So you were
Yeah,
almost like a whole different, almost
yeah,
like a single child family, it sounds like, because
yeah, kind of, yeah.
yeah, raised as an only child, sort
Mm.
of.
Like
Not exactly, but
when I was like a 5 years, 4 5 years old, uh, most of them got married. All of my siblings, just only one sister left. She got married when I was like about 10 years old. So yeah,
yeah,
so everyone
yeah.
was settled down.
So you had them sort of to yourself, per se, for a lot of years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But then, so your dad passed of cancer, but you lost your mom early as well.
Yeah, my dad died in 2009 January. My mom died in the same year in April 8th, just day before my birthday. So she passed away within 3 months of my dad dying because she couldn't take it. We're talking about grief and loss, how to go from a trauma, and the trauma was too much for her, and she ended up being a heart attack because all the time she's like talking about him. She can see him, my dad, and everything, and she feels like she can't live without him because they was proper close and really, really great relationship. My dad wouldn't let my mom to go her mom's house without him, right? She probably visited in there about 40, 45 years of marriage life, probably 2, 3 times without my dad. Even though uh, he goes like, you go and leave your mom's tonight, that's fine. Next morning he come with the car. Like I told him, go sleep tonight. You come back home.
Uh,
So they had like that kind of relationship. So obviously my mom couldn't take it, and she
uh,
passed away like the same year within like 3 months.
wow.
Yeah,
So she literally died of a broken heart, it sounds
yeah,
like.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
uh, because of the
And she was
anxiety and
just
everything.
still in her 50s.
She wasn't 50. She on her late 40s. She about 47, 48. Yeah,
Wow.
she wasn't in her 50s. Yeah,
Wow. So
because
she was a good bit younger than your father.
yeah, about 8, 9 years younger when they got married. Yeah, and
Yeah.
obviously it's hard to find like actual real date of birth for them because they're born in Bangladesh and not educated that much. But with
Yeah.
the we had a war in Pakistan and Bangladesh in 1971, so that way she gave me the maths, and that makes sense. Probably 1 or 2 years here and there. Otherwise, that's like a kind of
Mhm,
accurate. So
mhm.
yeah, yeah, she passed away and everything. So I lived in Bangladesh for a couple of years all alone because all of my siblings they moved to UK and they everyone got married in here and settled down. So my brother sponsored me, and by the time I'm going here, I was like 16 years old. So since then, I'm here in
So
UK
you
at the
lived on
moment.
your own from
Yeah,
the age of like 14 for a
yeah,
couple of
14 to 16. Yeah,
Wow. How did
and
you do that?
it was really really tough. Yeah. First of all, like I lost my both parents, and obviously coming out of that trauma as well itself. Then we are living in a massive mansion, which is like 8,000 square feet. First 3 months, I lived with one of my brother-in-law, my sister husband's brother, so his family. And then after living with them like 3 months, they just feel like they're not comfortable with me anymore. They feel like when you're gonna go, we thought like you're coming for 4 weeks, 5 weeks, and you're planning to live forever or something. Then I just decided to just go back to my own house, and I figured out like how things goes. And then I was like about 14 and a half years old. I came to the
Wow.
massive mansion on my own, and it was really really scary. Like 8,000 square feet, it wasn't like it's a small house. And
No, that's huge.
yeah, and plus I'm like a teenager also. I never lived on my own in this house like that. Even though a small house, I never lived on my own without my parents. So even though I can hear things like something make a noise in another room or something. When you live on your own, you feel like you're creating your own ghost on yourself. So I
Mm,
was creating my own ghost in my own brain and getting scared of that. So all night I stay awake, and when sunrise happened, I can see like some daylight. Then I wake up. Then I go sleep for like a
go to
couple of
sleep.
hours, take a nap.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
and I did that for like 1.5 years before I come here. I was in the anti-depression medication as well, going through
Yeah.
depression and also anxiety. Didn't feel like a living, but my religion says don't kill yourself, don't commit a suicide. So I would never do that. I knew that, but I felt like fearless after like living on my own for 2 months in the same house. Even though I feel like there is a ghost or something, I'll call out the ghost, show me your face. I was to go to graveyard during the midnight. Even though scariest place, my dad told me not to. I'll experience that. Yeah, I did also things because I was fearless
Wow.
about death. Because that time I thought that life doesn't have a meaning for me, and
Yeah.
because I lost both of my
Yeah.
parents, I don't see any future, and I was hopeless. And but one thing I did good thing, which is I really, really appreciate, even though myself, I didn't go to any kind of bad habits. So I had a money and I had an opportunity to go buy cigarettes, alcohol, or any kind of drug addiction. I didn't go any of that route.
Wow.
I
So
stick
you
to,
had some financial
yeah,
resources.
yeah. Like well, my dad built all of them businesses I was managing that time as well. So he taught me how to look after the business and everything by age 11 and 12. So I was
Wow.
managing all of the business and everything. So about $4,000 or $5,000 per month coming out. So living in Bangladesh is like you are doing a 250,000 a year in US because everything
Yeah.
is less expensive over there, and we don't have any mortgage to pay or any bills to pay, just only electricity and gas. That's all. So I was living like a proper luxury life, and I chose to not to do that, and I chose to not to use my dad's money as well. So I took some of my pocket money and invested in the stock market and start trading, and from there I bought my first computer, and I went to another shop. The guy had a computer shop. I asked him like, can you teach me how to do Photoshop editing and everything? I'm really curious to do that because I wasn't like a proper into education, study, and everything. I hate it. I want like something to do with the job or businesses.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah,
from there is everything started. So I distracted myself on the new skills. Also, I was proper into like sports. So I play badminton all evening, 6 p.m. to sometime 2, 3 in the morning. I'm just playing badminton. I was overweight. So I decided to lose my weight. And at the same time, I'm enjoying the playing the game. And yeah, that was like a proper distraction for me. And also in the daytime, I'm going to the stock market trading center and investing and everything. So it was a great journey. And yeah, when I come to UK, it wasn't that easy. I was a dishwasher, and my first job was doing the 6 nights and getting £100 a week, after working 50, 60 hours a week.
yeah,
And also
yeah.
same time learning English language. Also, I was in the college, getting my A levels and everything. So it was hard in this country. I prefer Bangladesh was better off, but I didn't know. I just wanted to come to my family and everything. But
Yeah.
the work life was really, really hard in here. So I have to build myself up. And it took like a 7, 8 years before I some kind of stable and settle down. And right now, build a business is 7-figure business right now. And yeah, it's going well, everything.
Wow. That's an amazing story. You are really a self-made man. And it's fascinating that before he passed, your father passed so much along to
Yeah,
you. Um, because otherwise at 14, you know,
I
who
know.
would have had the skills to keep themselves alive even, in that kind of a situation. Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's how all his teachings and everything like impacted on my life. Why am I doing it actually with my life? Obviously, with his education and everything. Because oftentimes we think we live a fortune for our children, but if we don't give them education, they're gonna be broke within months, and they can be in a street. Right. With education, you don't give them anything, but with the knowledge and experiences, they use it and they make difference with their life.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, we can talk about
So
the
how
hours and
did you,
hours.
yeah, how did you, I mean, I'm just imagining,
Yeah.
a 14-year-old boy who loses his dad, who he was very close to, right? Devastating loss.
Mm.
And then to have your mom die suddenly. I mean, she hadn't been ill, it sounds like. There was no medical reason except
Yeah.
literally for the broken heart. So, and then you're on your own. Your family's gone. And you talked about the depression and the anxiety
Yeah.
and not choosing to use drugs or alcohol or any other, ways of unhealthy ways, right, to cope with all of that. How did you manage that? Like your own mental health, your own anxiety, your own depression, sadness, all of it.
Oh, first thing, like I accepted like my dad passed away because I knew it's going to happen because he's stage 4 cancer, and we tried our best and we knew he's going to come. So obviously we prepared our brain like he's not gonna make it. We just a matter of time how long he lives.
Yeah.
And then after seeing him going through the pain and everything when he passed away, obviously we miss him and everything. We're going through that. Then I just realized whatever happened for good, because he's he just relieved from the pain he was having. He couldn't go sleep in the nighttime. All the time is holding his chest like this with the pain and screaming and crying. And even though he is like a proper strong person, but even though he couldn't help it, so that was like a one thing like made me calm with him. It comes down to mom, and I think like same again. I feel like they made for each other, my mom and dad. And
Mhm.
without him, she can't make it. And she's going to be depressed all the time. She's going to be stressed out all the time. And I can't see that. So it's going to affect all of us around us. Also, she's not going to be happy with nothing without him because she doesn't care
Mhm.
about money. She doesn't care about luxury or anything because she's like one of the simplest person I met. So she's only care about him. So she passed away, which is another good thing because eventually they both have to die. She is nearly on her 50s, late 40s. So on average, people live probably 60, 70 years old. So eventually in 15, 20 years time, she have to go. So it's probably earlier for her. So yeah,
Mhm.
I was just understanding that way. And like I'm saying, because even though I'm right now 27, I mean, age of 14, like I taught my brain in the same way. Like I understood like what I need to do. But at the same time, I'm missing my family as well. So I used to talk to
Yeah.
my sister and everything. So that time, I'll so the best thing was like one of my sister, my second sister, the eldest. She was like all the time. She's giving me call every single day, explaining and everything. She was like every time I was like having a bad day. So every day it's not like I'm high, thinking positive and everything. So when I'm low in the moment, just I got the support from my sister,
Uh-huh.
and she, even though throughout now, like even though I'm doing some kind of difficulties, and I just ring her, and she calms me down with talking about like how strong I am and everything, just giving me reminder as well. So that time I got the help from her and
Mhm.
also my other siblings as well, my brother as well. So yeah, that really helped. And like I mentioned, I took on like what I can do right now in order to move forward with my life. So I try to do something different and get into business, stock investing and everything. That was like a good distraction for me. Also get into sports. So I was like always trying to best myself in the whole town. So I want to play in a professionally and everything. So I got the big goals and big dreams, even though that never came true, but it's totally fine because I had the
Totally.
ambition. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
ambition gave me like that kind of distraction. So thinking
Mhm.
about negative. So if I'm playing all evening and everything, I'm exhausted. So when I come in the morning time, 2, 3 in the morning, then I can go good night's sleep as well because I'm so tired after working out 8, 9 hours, and I can do that. And the next morning I wake up at 10, 11 o'clock because I was homeschooled that time. So my private tutor is to come like a 5, 6 in p.m. I'm just studying like a 1 hour, half an hour, then back to what I needs to be doing. So I had a routine, and also I was like a proper close to mosque. So I used to go 5 time mosque, praying and everything. When
Mhm.
I need to come out everything, so I cry out to God, and this is the only place. Even though right now, sometimes I feel low or something, I cry out to mosque and everything. So that calms me down, and that was like a. This is it. Like to be honest, nothing like serious. I didn't really needed any kind of uh, therapist or life coach or anything.
Yeah.
I can manage myself really well from
Yeah. No, it
early
sounds
age.
like you found really healthy
Yeah,
distractions or outlets or, ways to um, just move through all of it. And fortunately had family support.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Absolutely, that made it easier for me. So, how do you help like other people, like those who going through that trauma and everything? Obviously, you've been a speaker in a TED talk as well. You're speaking everywhere, different podcast, and with your like business as well. How you helping other people to get out of the trauma or guiding through the process?
Yeah. Well, I use, again, a very sort of spiritual, energetic approach. I mean,
Mm,
obviously, I've been doing psychotherapy for, 27 years or so as my primary uh, work. I'm sort of winding that down and um, moving over into more of a coaching sort of uh, model, but
yeah,
I use a lot of the same kinds of, tools and techniques. Um, and one of the reasons people say, well, why are you changing? And in the States, you, as a therapist, you can only work with clients who are in the state that you're licensed in.
hmm,
And so it's a very limiting, and insurance is all involved. It's very limiting in terms of your reach. And
yeah,
I've always wanted and I've always on the side had a coaching practice to reach, more and more people. So, that's kind of the direction that I'm going in now. But I really sort of take people through a process of, sort of like a little more traditional coaching of sort of where do you want to be? Like, what's
Mm.
not working for you in your life right now? And I love working with women in particular. I mean, I work with men as well, but I would say my primary audience is women between like 40 and 60, 40 and 65, maybe, called midlife, but,
Yeah.
it's a, uh, to really support them in, if they're going through a change or a transition, whether it's unexpected, like a divorce or death of a partner, or, whatever, loss of a job, child, and really identify, you know, what feels more in alignment with you now. And
Mm.
then once we sort of have a vision, then going back and doing sort of like we were doing, like an early assessment, like what are the things that have formed you, right? And where maybe are there blockages or belief systems or um, traumas that may be blocking your path.
Yeah.
And I like to talk about sort of spiritual archaeology, where take we sort of unearth, if you will, all the broken pieces, all the
Mm.
parts of ourselves that feel broken or unhealed or whatever, and very lovingly and like in a sacred space, we sort of go in and start to brush things off and look at the broken pieces and the stories, do healing work. Whether I do a lot of tapping, EFT,
Yeah.
which I love because it brings together both the sort of the talking aspect of therapy and the energy aspect of healing and moving energy through the energy body. So I do a lot of tapping. I do other kinds of energy focused work, um, to really unearth those pieces and bring healing to them. And then, all right, now how do we put these pieces back together to create your new story, your new
Mm.
mosaic, your new beautiful tapestry going forward? And as we spoke about early on, I really do believe that people's life experiences are the very rich soil in which our purpose grows, right? So there
Yeah.
is a relationship between trauma and purpose, I believe. And I don't believe that everybody has to have trauma in order to find their purpose, but I do believe that we can find purpose in the things that we've been through. So it's sort of like two pieces. We can find purpose in all of our experiences, right? But
Yeah.
also, as we heal, then we clear the doubt, we clear the negative beliefs, we clear the places where we feel fear and, you know, a lack of self-confidence or a lack of self-esteem, so that we can step more fully into who we are. Because my belief
Mm.
is it sounds cliche, but we really are spiritual beings
Yeah.
who chose to be here having this human journey. And we are not what happened to us. That we are not our story. We're so much bigger than that. And when
Yeah.
we can put these experiences in perspective, when we can do the healing, on the mental, the physical, the emotional level, then we can expand into more of who we are and who we came here to be. I believe
Yeah.
that every human being on this planet is a soul that chose to come here at this time to be part of this amazing experience
Mm.
that Earth is going through right now. All the change, right? I believe the Earth itself and all of the systems are it's kind of like the ugly underbelly. Everything that's been in
Yeah.
the shadows is being exposed right now, so that we can create a new world, a more loving world, a more inclusive world, a world that wants to take care of the earth. And I believe that we all showed up here to do that, to play our part in that.
Yeah,
So
it's true. Yeah, thank
yeah,
you so much. Yeah, Catherine. So we're running out of time for this podcast. And yeah, we can talk about the hours and hours, but
yeah.
we are limited to the time. So I really appreciate you sharing your journey and also your expertise on that. So those who's listening, if they want to reach out to you, want to work with you, how they can find you.
So my website is called Sacred Heart Alchemy, because I believe it's working through the heart, right? That
Yeah.
we create transformation and change. So if people just go to www.sacredheartalchemy.com, there's a connect button there. There's also, they can sign up to get a couple of free resources from me. That's sort of the easiest way.
Mhm.
I'm in the process of creating a quiz around your response to anxiety and trauma. And so if people want to get on my mailing list and see when that will be coming out, they can do that as well. And there's some things coming up in 2022, which I can't believe we're talking about already, but it's right upon us.
Yeah.
That are in the stages of being put together. So I don't want to say too much about them. New programs, a 6-month group coaching program that I'm really excited about. I'm still working on it, putting together the webinar right now and creating all of the content for that. So there's a lot coming up. So the easiest way, I think, is for people to just go ahead, go to my website and, fill in the contact box or whatever and get a couple of free gifts. And then we can stay connected in that way. And there's also an option there if they want to have a one-on-one consultation with me, a free consultation, that they can do that as well.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. So I wish you good luck with your journey, with your business and your life also. And you have like a wonderful Christmas as well. I don't know, we're gonna talk soon or not. So yeah, take care of yourself.
All right. Well, thanks again for the opportunity, because I love the conversation. And, I'm just impressed with your story and where you have taken all of that at this point in your life, and look forward to seeing you, step even more into your most highest expression of yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Catherine.
All righty. Thank you.
That's a wrap, guys. Thank you so much for listening. I wish you good luck with everything. So I'll talk to you in the next episodes. Till then, stay safe, stay healthy. Talk to you